This is the first problem of our Chapter 5 review, where we are talking about the equal values method. So these are story problems, and I'm going to walk you through doing the first story problem. So at first, I'd like to remind you that to start out using the equal values method, we need to have two equations which are in the slope-intercept form, also known as the y equals mx plus b form. And what I'd like to do right now is just remind you what the m symbolizes in that equation. So the m is really the change. So if something is changing, that's where the change goes. And it can either be growth, so sometimes you're adding a certain amount every time, or it can be a decrease. Sometimes you are subtracting the same amount every time. And then B, over at the end of the equation, that stands for your starting amount. So usually in these problems, there is some kind of a starting amount. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for these two things, either the change or the starting amount. So let's read these equations and see where we can find that. Katie weighs 105 pounds and is gaining 2 pounds a month. James weighs 175 pounds and is losing 3 pounds a month. When will they weigh the same? So we're looking for when will they weigh the same? And actually, once we put this problem together, we will be able to find both things out. We'll find out when they will weigh the same, and we will find out how much they will weigh when that happens. Okay, but our first task, according to the equal values method, is that we need to set up two equations in the y equals mx plus b form. All right, so let's look at Katie. So remember, we're looking for a starting amount and then some kind of a change. So Katie weighs 105 pounds. That sounds like our starting amount, and is gaining 2 pounds a month. Okay, so there is our change, 2 pounds a month. So if we were going to write the equation for Katie, we would write y equals, and I can just go ahead and write the x here. We're going to leave a space plus something. Okay, so let's now put in what is our starting amount. Well, that was 105 pounds. And so we're going to put that where the starting amount goes, which is where the b goes. That's at the end of the equation. So 105 goes in there. And then we need to figure out what the change is. What's going to be the coefficient of x? Well, that is 2 pounds a month. Okay, so we put 2 in front of the x. So this is interesting because now we know that our x is going to be equal to months. So x is going to be the number of months. All right, and y is actually going to be the total weight. Because if we take the starting weight, which is 105 right here, and then we add on 2 pounds every month, then we're going to get y, which is the amount of the total weight of the person. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at James now. So James is going to be y equals something times x plus something, which will be our starting weight. And so let's take a look at what James will be. So James he weighs 175 pounds. So we know that's our starting weight. So let's put that in at the end of the equation. And then he's losing 3 pounds a month. So that's different than gaining. Losing is we're subtracting 3 pounds a month. So that's why we're going to make that a -3 times x, which is the number of months. Okay, so now we've got the two equations that are in y equals mx plus b form. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to assume that these two y's are equal to each other. And we can do that because we know that the solution to this system of equations, these two equations, is going to be the place where both of these equations can be solved by the same x and the same y. So we know that when we find the right solution, this y is going to equal this y. So that's why we can assume that they are equal, the same number. And if we can assume that these two y's are the same number, that allows us to assume something else. So if you look at the other side of the equal sign to this y, you'll notice that we have this expression. And if you look at the other side of the equal sign from this y, you see another expression. So if these two y's are equal, and these two y's are equal to the expression, then that means that these two expressions have to be equal to each other. So that allows us to do something else, which is we can just rewrite those two expressions, 2x plus 105 and -3x plus 175, and we can make them equal to each other. All right, so this is great because now we only have one variable. We've got x over here and x over here. So we don't have two variables anymore, just one variable. So that means we can solve for this x. So now we start using our equation solving skills. All right, so we can't have x's on both sides of the equation. So we need to get rid of one of these x's. And so we're going to zero it out. And I think I'll get rid of this -1 over here, the -3x. So to do that, I'll just add a +3x to it. And because I do that on one side, I have to do that on the other. That's the rules for solving equations. All right, so let's look on the left side. 2x plus 3x is going to be equal to 5x. And we're still going to just have this 105 because that hasn't changed. And then over here, we've zeroed out the 3x. And so -3x plus +3x is 0. So we're just going to take that 175 that's left and write it down. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to get this 5x by itself. So we're going to get rid of this 105, this +105, by zeroing it out by subtracting -105 from it. Okay, so let's see, we have to do that on the other side too, -105. So on the left-hand side, we've zeroed out 105, so all we have left is 5x. And over on this side, it's a little different because 175 minus 105 is equal to 70. Okay, so now we need to get rid of this coefficient. But this coefficient doesn't have a plus-minus relationship with the x. This is 5 times x. So if we're going to undo that relationship, the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're dividing by 5. And we're going to divide by 5 on both sides. So 5 over 5 is equal to 1. 1 times x is equal to just plain x. And then over here, 5 divided into 70 goes once and 4 times. So x is equal to 14. So now we know how many months, because X is equal to months. So now we know that this is going to be 14 months. So that's how long it's going to take us before they are the same weight. But what is that weight going to be? Well, that is pretty easy to find out, because all we have to do is take this value for X that we have, 14 months, and plug it into one of these original equations. And I'm going to use the top equation. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll rewrite it. Y is equal to 2x plus 105. That's the original equation. And now I'm going to plug in the value of x, which is 14. So y equals 2 times 14 plus 105. And that is equal to 28 plus 105. And that is going to be equal to 133. So 133 pounds. Okay, so now we can write the answer to this, which is in 14 months, they will both weigh 133 pounds.